All right, wonderful. Well, welcome to the second C10 of the semester. I appreciate everybody for taking time out to join or to listen to this wonderful presentation we have for you tonight. The focus of this event is to introduce the diversity initiatives at certain companies and learn about the opportunities that they have for you within those particular companies, whether it's an internship or a full-time job. I want to make sure that you all have information to empower you. So therefore, when you start your search, you know what to look for and you have some ideas of what is out there. Feel free to keep your cameras off if you so please. When we get into the question and answer session, you are fully welcome to turn your camera on and come off mute to ask questions to the employers, or you can use the chat. I will be checking it all throughout this presentation. So at any moment you have a question, I relay that question to our presenter. So feel free to do that as well. Before we fully dive into the three companies that we have with us tonight, I want to let you all know about some other diversity initiatives that we have coming up for the remainder of the fall. So every second, third, and fourth Friday of the month, I host the DNI drop-in corner. So you can hop on Zoom from 10 to 12 and have a quick career coaching appointment with me, 10 minutes, super low key. Don't be afraid. I'm really nice. And feel free to ask whatever career questions that you have, resume checks, or things of that sort. So I will be doing drop-ins this Friday coming up. So feel free to jump on and ask me any questions that you have. If you enjoyed this event, or maybe you enjoyed the first one, we have our last C10 event of the fall coming up on November 4th from 5 to 6 p.m. We have some really cool employers for that one. That will be KPMG, EY, and PwC. I know those are like all initials, but they're all legitimate companies. So definitely check them out. If you've never heard of these companies, I would definitely encourage you and empower you to jump on to that C10 session in November. And then last, we have a brand new panel, hot off the press. I call it Route 1804. And this is an out-of-state alumni panel where we're bringing you alumni who actually left the state of Ohio for employment. And I know that sounds scary, especially if you were born and raised in the state of Ohio. But there are alumni Bobcats that have done it, meaning you can do it. And therefore, maybe you should even entertain looking for a couple opportunities outside of the state of Ohio. But before you do that, I would like for you to hear from some alumni about how they did it, maybe their journey and where they crash landed. And then that will hopefully assist you in your employment search. That might include some out-of-state companies. So that'll be happening on November 12th from 4 to 5. So definitely check us out for that alumni panel. Tonight we have some really cool people with us. All these companies have been on campus and really great individuals to connect with. We have a rep from Teach for America, Peace Corps, and City Years. So Kaylin is from Teach for America. She will be speaking first tonight. We have Carlos, who represents Peace Corps. And then we have Lauren that represents City Year. All of these companies are really great companies. From our students that graduation snuck up on you, like, oh my God, where did the 4 years go? These are really great gap year programs. They are 2-year programs that will give you structure and a little bit of money. So definitely listen to what they have to say. Your gap year does not have to be sitting at home with your parents and they're driving you crazy because they actually do the dishes and take the trash out all the time. You could actually not go home and then get involved in one of these companies and maybe get on a new path in life. You never know. Just fill your time productively as you decide what you want to do with the rest of your life. So first we're going to have Kaylin from Teach for America. She'll have 10 minutes. And then we'll have Carlos go from Peace Corps. He'll have 10 minutes. And then we'll have Lauren from City Year go. She'll have 10 minutes. And then we'll come back and we'll have a collective question and answer. So write your questions down, shoot them in the chat, and I will be sure to relay those or feel empowered to ask them yourself. So I'm going to switch presentations to Kaylin's presentation, especially for her. And then we will go ahead and get started with her.
Thanks so much, Mika. I can also share if that's easier too.
Let's see. It might be a good technology day. We're totally going to try this out. I think I have good skills as a clicker too. So I think I know where the good pauses are.
Way to go. Awesome. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. As Tamika shared, my name is Kaylin Thomas, and I'm the recruitment manager who supports students at OU in exploring postgraduate opportunities with Teach for America and thinking specifically about meaningful impact that you can have after graduation. For those of you who are not familiar with Teach for America, TFA is an organization committed to disrupting social inequality in this country. The way that we choose to do this is through education. So we are a national nonprofit organization working to end educational inequity. We know that when we are born, our potential is equally distributed across lines of difference. Our potential is infinite, regardless of race or class. We also know that opportunity, unfortunately, is not. And children growing up in low-income communities oftentimes lack access to the resources and education necessary to meet their needs. And we know that this is incredibly unjust, and it has been largely unchanged in our country for centuries. Tamika, if you want to go to the next slide. Thank you. Like I said, children growing up in low-income communities lack access to a broad spectrum of resources and opportunities that they need to thrive and attend schools that are oftentimes not equipped to meet all their needs. Our school system, honestly, is pretty ill-equipped to address the myriad of other challenges that students in poverty bring to the classroom, such as hunger, such as racism, discrimination, and trauma. Specifically, children of color are twice as likely to be born into poverty and constitute nearly half of all children in American public schools. They bear the additional burden of low expectation and biases stemming from institutional racism. So at Teach for America, we ask ourselves, since educational inequity is a systemic problem, what will it take to achieve change at all levels of the system? And this is really where Teach for America comes into play. We think of our impact at TFA as having both short-term and long-term impacts. So in the short term, Teach for America is a 2-year commitment to teach in a low-income public school in one of our 49 regions across the country. As a TFA Corps member, you are hired by a principal, you are paid a teacher's salary, you have benefits, healthcare benefits, which is super important. You get to preference where you go, what you want to teach, what grade level. We work with pre-K all the way through 12th grade. And in the classroom, you are charged as a leader who is working to set really ambitious goals with students, supporting them to make both academic and personal growth throughout your 2 years in the classroom. During that time, you develop long-lasting relationships with students and their families and communities so that you can continue to be an agent of change working towards educational equity for the rest of your career. Beyond the 2-year commitment with Teach for America, you are considered an alum of TFA. And as an alum, you get to decide how you want to continue to create impact. So that can be within the 4 walls of schools as a lifelong educator, a teacher, right, a school leader, a superintendent of education. But you can also go on to become a lawyer or a doctor or a socially conscious business person, an ed tech entrepreneur. And we encourage this as well. At TFA, we know that if we're actually going to achieve systems level change, we have to have leaders in all sectors, in all fields, fighting the inequities that exist within our society from all angles. That's the only way that we're actually going to reimagine and redefine what our education system can be and create not only a school system, but a society that's equitable for all people. Tamika, if you can move it forward to the next slide, thank you. So when we ask ourselves, what will it take? We look at, first of all, who is actually in Teach for America's core? Who are core members with TFA? So this is a quick snapshot of our most recent core in terms of academic background and diversity. So we actually have core members who come from over 720 colleges and universities across the country. 1 in 3 of Teach for America core members are the first in their family to graduate from college. And this year, actually 50% of our core members identified as people of color. Through the core, like I said, within this 2-year commitment, you are building long-lasting relationships with students and families and communities. And I'm sure that Lauren and Carlos will also share this, but During your time in the classroom or working with your community, you're actually able to have a profound influence. You will experience a personal transformation. Your time in the classroom will shape and define you in ways that you really can't imagine and help you to forge a unique path of impact. Additionally, when we ask ourselves what it will take, a lot of times people come to us and say, Kaylin, I'm actually not an education major, so how do I fit into this? Teach for America is open to all majors. You can come from any academic background and join Teach for America. We really focus on leadership and the deep belief in our kids' potential as the ways that you are actually prepared to step into the classroom. We support you, though, in training, ongoing coaching, and mentorship to make sure that you are not only an effective teacher, but an effective leader. So in the classroom, the magnitude of your impact will really be the direct result of dedication, persistence, and willingness to set ambitious goals and chart bold pathways to achieving them, which I know students at OU are ready to do. As a core member, you receive a rigorous summer training program and extensive coaching and, like I said, professional development and other resources throughout your time. Throughout the 2 years, your region will offer many types of support to empower your leadership. And that can include, again, one-on-one coaching. It can include graduate classes, mentoring, professional development, and so on. At the same time, you're going to have a powerful network to lean on, including fellow core members, alumni, and veteran teachers in your community. I think our most successful teachers make the most of all of these relationships, and they engage really deeply in leadership development, coaching, and resources to become the best classroom teachers and leaders they can be. And then I think something that is a little bit different about Teach for America is that the support doesn't stop once you complete your core years. As an alum, you have the opportunity to receive ongoing career and leadership development resources and development, as well as access to an ever-expanding network of colleagues who are ready to support you, challenge you, and lead alongside you. Additionally, with some very specific opportunities as an alum, of Teach for America. So I think the last thing that I always think about when I think of Teach for America is, where will this lead you? Where can TFA take you? This work can lead you down incredible paths. After your time in the classroom, alumni continue their promising trajectories as leaders in many different fields. Like I said, some remain in education. Many others move on to everything from politics to entrepreneurship to medicine. TFA alumni are really shaping the political, economic, and social future of our country. So as an alum, like I said before, TFA will continue to support you and to develop your personal, professional, and collective leadership in the areas that you believe are most critical. One of the things that I always like to highlight about Teach for America is that roughly 85% of our alumni actually continue to support low-income communities in the work that they do today. And that can be in classrooms, like I said before, or it can be as policymakers, as public health advocates, or as ed tech entrepreneurs who are in Silicon Valley thinking about, especially in today's climate, how are we actually bridging things like the digital divide or the technological divide for students? And then lastly, this is a quick snapshot of some of the areas that Teach for America alums are currently leading in. We've had lots of individuals, over 280 elected officials, nearly 2,000 working in school leadership. In the last few years, we've had over 20 individuals named to Forbes 30 Under 30 list. So truly, Teach for America alums are doing it all. They continue to leverage their leadership to advocate for our students and advocate for equity in our education system. Each of our 60,000 plus alum, they share this unique and meaningful experience of serving in the classroom. And because of that, they're united by a common commitment to impact. And so this pushes them to always find a way to connect their lifelong work, right? And then the impact for the movement for educational equity. And with that, I don't know how close I am to my 10 minutes, but that's all I have to share. I can pass it back over to Tamika, or I can pass it to Carlos.
You did great. You're spot on. So that was wonderful.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you so much.
Or gong, I would have rung it ding, 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 but perfect. And Carlos, you can feel free to share your screen if you have a presentation or if you just want to talk on whatever works best for you.
Yeah, I will share screen really quickly. Normally don't do too many presentations, so if I'm messing up on technology, let me know if you see it. Awesome. So my name is Carlos Jean-Baptiste. I'm the recruiter for Peace Corps. I cover Southern Ohio and Kentucky, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about Peace Corps. This is actually a really interesting day. 60 years ago today, JFK announced his vision for Peace Corps at University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. So I'm going to put something into the text box. There's a video kind of about that speech, so if you get a chance, you can look at it. Essentially calling for young Americans to go out and serve not just the United States, but to serve the world, and Peace Corps being the opportunity to do that. And so Peace Corps has three main missions, or three goals in our mission. First is to provide technical assistance to requesting countries. So one of the big things, and again, that we're talking about so much today, is the fact that we don't go where we want or do the work that we want. We do the work with partners. So partner countries request Peace Corps volunteers to come in and do the work that they need to have done that's in line with their national development goals. And even at the grassroots level, communities request Peace Corps volunteers. So again, we try to build this relationship with the communities that we work. The second two goals of Peace Corps, I think, are really most important, and something to keep in mind is that Peace Corps is also about diplomacy. It is an opportunity to help promote a better understanding of Americans. And in this, again, this day and age, when we think about the rich fabric that makes up America, it's really important for us to have volunteers that represent America abroad. Just like our understanding of other countries, so much of other people's understanding of us comes from media, comes from the movies, comes from books and news. And typically that doesn't really represent us as Americans. And so it's really important as first generation Americans, as new Americans, as Americans of color and from different religious backgrounds and from different parts of the country, to really take this opportunity to represent yourself and represent your identities and your communities in Peace Corps and to the world, and really to let them understand how diverse this country is. On the flip side, we want to take that back to our own communities. So I served in Kenya, but I served in Coast Province, and so I served with the Mijikenda people, right? And so when I talk about my communities and my service, it's not just Kenya writ large or Africa even. It's really about where I served in my own experiences within the country. And so we want to bring that back and have a much richer picture than just what media or news portrays. In terms of the work we have 6 umbrellas, and these are really broad umbrellas of opportunity. The largest thing that we do is classroom education. That is teaching English, teaching math, or teaching science at the junior high all the way up to the college and university level in different countries. The second largest is health, and that's a public health position. So that is doing general awareness around specific topics. It could be very specific in terms of things like maternal health and child health. It could be around different diseases, communicable or non-communicable, or it could be really much more broader in terms of just general health education and awareness. The third category we have is youth and development. It's a weird in terms of its size, so it's large in its individual groups, but we don't have many of those programs. So lots of volunteers, but not in very many countries. Again, that is education by a different name. So that is working in youth centers, community centers, doing things like tutoring, job training, civic training, things along that line. So again, education just outside of the classroom. The next two categories are agriculture and environment. These are two of our more technical opportunities. So again, if you're going to be an environmental volunteer, it's very niche. It could be things like coastal resource management, could be things along the lines of agro-business or agroforestry. And so again, you'll see that bleeding over into agriculture. And agriculture could be crop extension, could be things like food security, could be nutrition programs along those lines. The final umbrella we have is community and economic development. This one is the inverse of youth and development in terms of lots of programs all around the world, but not very large programs. This is more for entrepreneurial spirits. This is opportunities to work with NGOs or business associations, trying to help organizations or business people get their organizations and businesses off the ground. So this could be things like Business 101, grant writing, a little bit more along those lines. Everybody works on secondary projects though. So even if you find a program that doesn't directly align with your background, don't let that be too much of a concern. For example, when I was in Kenya, I got offered to serve as an education and health volunteer. But a lot of the projects that I worked on the side were financing projects, infrastructure development projects, and working with different entities to actually get another school for my community built. And so again, even though I was a teacher, there was much more because I was a member of that community. And again, you're going to hear a lot about that today. In terms of where we serve geographically, this is, as soon as you print a map, it's already out of date, but this is a good idea of where we are. About 50% of our programming is in sub-Saharan Africa. About a quarter of our programming is in the Americas. And then you'll see around 10 to 12% in Central Asia and Eastern Europe, 10 to 12% in Asia, and then a teeny tiny number, about 3% or so in the Pacific Islands. So we're all over the world. What was I going to say in terms of this is always changing. So keep an eye on this. Certainly Vietnam is a new country that we are working with. Sri Lanka is a new country that we're working with. Unfortunately, China's been graduated out of the program. So again, you'll see those changes coming on. In terms of language requirements, wherever you go to serve, you're going to have up to 3 months of training. That's going to have intense language training as part of it. So don't worry if you don't have another language yet. You're going to get a second one, maybe a third or fourth one through Peace Corps. We do have language requirements in the Americas for Spanish and in some of our West African countries for French. In order to qualify, you have to have 2 semesters of college Spanish or French, or 4 years of high school French or Spanish, or grew up speaking the language. This is benefits after service. Talking about service, Peace Corps is a job, so you're gonna receive a professional salary for the country that you're in. You get 48 days of vacation. This is very much a job. We're flying you to and from country. Housing is provided for you. But then afterwards, a lot of questions are, what do I do next? And so, first of all, Peace Corps is giving you about $8,000 in transitional funds when you're coming back. That's about $350 a month per month of service, and it goes into an account for you to use as you want to. So you can use that to pay for school loans, travel the world, which is what I did, or kind of get yourself set up in your town. There's also grad school benefits through Coverdell Fellows. That is a relationship with universities that are recruiting returned Peace Corps volunteers specifically. There's also professional networking through the 250,000 returned Peace Corps volunteers who have associations in every city that I've ever been to around the world. We're eager to bring you into their community and help set you up, find a new job. There's non-competitive eligibility, which you also get through AmeriCorps programs, which helps you get a federal job. It's a hiring authority into the federal government. Peace Corps qualifies as for your public service loan forgiveness. So if you're interested in going into public service, this is a great way to skip to that, to get the first 2 years, and certainly for free. The application process seems long, but it's not really that long. Really, the big key now is apply for a job, fill out a health history form, and you'll move forward that way. I'm here as a recruiter to help you figure out what is the best way to apply, when to apply, and help you walk through this step. So again, here's my contact information, Carlos Baptiste. The email address is long. I'll put it in the chat box for a little bit later, and I'm looking forward to any questions you might have. Thank you very much. Pass it back on to you, Tamika.
All right. So weird occurrence that just happened, everybody. Realized we had two chats going for this beautiful event. So I figured that out. And now we have Lauren from City Year, who has already graciously given her presentation to another group of participating students. But for the sake of this recording, we're going to have her jump in and do that here. So thank you for your flexibility, students, for jumping over. Also, Carlos and Caitlin, I told the students to join so they can ask you their questions live after Lauren presents. So thank you, Lauren, and feel free to take it away.
All right. Thanks, Tamika. Thanks, y'all. Sorry I wasn't here at the beginning, but I'm glad to be here now. Am I going to be sharing my screen, or are we going off of the PowerPoint I sent you, Tamika?
You can go ahead and share your screen. That works.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. Let's try this a different way. All right. Tamika, do you see the welcome screen? Can you give me a thumbs up? Awesome. Thank you. Okay. All right. So just to briefly introduce myself so you all know who you're talking with today, my name is Lauren Toomey. I am the recruiter for City Year based out of Columbus. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I recently received my master's in higher education administration from Louisiana State University, with the intention of working with college students like yourselves every day. But for me, it's perfect that I get to do it in this way because I get to talk with people like you every day while also contributing to the City Year mission, which I have so much passion for. So super excited to be here today. And I'm gonna go ahead and just begin with a quick poll that I would love to know if you all could have one question answered today, or what's one thing you really hope to gain from this session. If you could just drop that in the chat for me. That way, as I'm going through, hopefully I answer your questions. And if not, I can come back to it at the end and we can hit it in the Q&A. Awesome. So just to jump right in, there's an educational crisis in our country, and that is that 800,000 students every year do not complete high school across the US. And that equates to about one student every 31 seconds. So as we sit here and as I talk to you and I watch the PowerPoint clock tick away, every 31 seconds, one student is not completing high school. However, the good news is this is a solvable problem. So through targeted research and data collection, City Year has been able to identify which students are most likely to not complete school on time. And I'm going to tell you how we contribute to that. So thanks to a Johns Hopkins study, we've identified 3 key early warning indicators of students who fall into that 800,000 who are most likely to not complete high school on time. And those 3 warning indicators are also known as the ABCs. So attendance, behavior, and course performance or coursework. Students who are exhibiting one or more of these early warning indicators are at least 75% more likely of not completing high school or of falling into that 800,000. But students who begin the 10th grade on track and on time in their coursework grades or in the ABCs are 3 to 4 times more likely to graduate high school. So where does City Year fall into that? And what does it look like to be a City Year AmeriCorps member? So I've given you the high level overview of what the issue is in our country, right? Or what the educational crisis is. And now I'm going to tell you how City Year works to contribute to that mission. Or works through our mission to contribute to that crisis. I'm sorry. So within service as a City Year AmeriCorps member, there are some key aspects listed here on this slide that I'm going to dive more into. The first key aspect is going to be tutoring. So you'll do targeted tutoring interventions with the same students every day throughout the entire academic year, which does mean that as a City Year AmeriCorps member, you'll be at the same school for the entire year, working with the same students to hopefully help get their grades back up to the level that they should be performing at or that reflect their grade level. So through targeted tutoring interventions every day, you'll get to pull those students out of the classroom and actually align what they would be learning in the classroom, but bring it to the level that they need it to be at. So another key piece of this then is working with one partner teacher throughout the entire year. And that's because you're taking the lesson that they would be giving in that classroom and you're tailoring it to your students' needs to give it to them in their tutoring interventions. So just to offer some context, We do tutor in two key areas that you would typically see on state testing and that we've seen are most needed in tutoring, and that's in math and reading. And I tutored in reading with 7th graders. And when I first started with my 7th graders, they were performing at a 3rd grade reading level. Happy to report, by the end of the year, they were back up to 6th grade or higher, which is awesome. But the goal then with City Year is by working in a K through 12 pipeline, we won't always see students performing that far behind. So by working with them as early as 3rd grade even, getting them back on track to graduate high school on track and on time. So another key piece of the role then is analyzing the data as you go. So not only seeing how your students are performing based on how those tutoring interventions may be helping them, but also making sure we're not missing any other students who may be falling behind in their coursework and who might need to join in those tutoring efforts. And finally, there are opportunities to lead extra team initiatives among not only your school, but among your community. So whichever city you serve in, it's like a larger effort to contribute to the community. For me, I was on the social justice facilitation committee, and that allowed me to meet with other core members from across the San Jose site, and we actually created a social justice and restorative justice workshop that we delivered to the entire core of San Jose to help them implement into their day-to-day service. And then the other key piece of being a City or AmeriCorps member is not just the academic interventions, but being a mentor to your students. And this was without a doubt my favorite part of serving, was building those relationships with my students that still last to this day. I still have a lot of them reach out to me even 3 years later. And you'll see those moments definitely coming into play when you're doing recess support or blacktop support or even lunch line support. So you'll see in the pictures here our AmeriCorps members like playing soccer with students. And those moments are, they're brief, but they're definitely crucial. And that's how you build the rapport with your students to, be able to gain their trust and pull them out of the classroom to do those tutoring interventions. And then another big piece of service is the after-school programs that we lead, and those vary across sites, but I can tell you that the model that most sites tend to observe will have you at school before the students arrive, and then you stay afterwards to lead the after-school programs. So if you haven't gleaned by now, it's definitely long hours, but absolutely worth it because the work that you're doing is so impactful and meaningful. I'm a firm believer that you'll definitely get out of City or what you put into it. So now I've given you, that overview of what it looks like to be a City or AmeriCorps member. I'm sure you're wondering by now what some of the benefits of becoming an AmeriCorps member are. So I'll jump right into those for you. So beginning on that left column there, when you're actively serving, you'll receive a biweekly living stipend ranging anywhere from $630 to $930, and this varies based on site. It's a reflection of what the cost of living at each site is. And I do have specific breakdowns of those. If y'all are curious after this, definitely reach out to me and I can sort of guide you based on what each site looks like. There is also a one-time, $500 relocation assistance, which is given to AmeriCorps members who have relocated 50 miles or more to serve. And so that is attached to your first service paycheck, and it is, like I said, a one-time thing. But jumping over to the right column, and I will come back to that left column. Still, while you're actively serving, these are the other benefits you'll see, which are health insurance, paid time off of up to 12 days. We have an employee assistance program, access to free counseling services, because we know that not only is this work very emotionally challenging and mentally draining, but also with the state of the current state of our country, it's definitely important that you have the resources you need and feel supported in the ways that you need. And then loan forbearance during service, which means just any undergraduate loans that you may have accrued, you are not responsible for paying those while you're actively serving. And then, as I mentioned, jumping back over to the left column, upon completion of your service year, you receive a Siegel Education Award of approximately $6,000, which can be used towards any educational fees that you may have accrued during undergrad, or it can be used towards graduate school if that's in the cards for you. As long as it's education related, that $6,000 is yours to use. Additionally, we do partner with about 120 post-secondary institutions to offer anywhere from 25 to 100% tuition scholarships to city or alumni exclusively. I can actually speak to this personally, as my service year fell at the perfect time. I had no idea this was even a benefit of being a city year alum, but I actually was very lucky enough to receive one of 2 full ride scholarships to LSU to get my master's degree. So that is how I ended up there. I just filtered among the alumni website by program, and I knew I wanted to do higher education, and took me to LSU. Very humbled, very blessed by the full ride scholarship that City Year was able to provide for me. Those partnerships are definitely amazing. Once you're in the alumni network, you're in it for life. So here's just a little visual overview of some of the different career paths that our alumni tend to take. It's definitely not all teaching. You do get classroom experience, but in general, I would say more so you get leadership experience in ways that I personally never could have imagined for myself, but that's definitely the biggest takeaway. I would say that, the other option is you see like 29% is education, but a lot of that could also be higher education, which, as I mentioned, is what I got my master's in. But there are plenty of different fields that you can take, and the partnerships that I mentioned on the previous slide those are the university partnerships, but there are a lot of other career partnerships as well. So now, just to give you a brief overview of the application process, here's a visual of all of our 29 sites. So in total, we have 3,000 AmeriCorps members serving 226,000 students across 350 schools among these locations. And here is an overview of the application deadlines. So we do it on sort of a rolling basis, you could say, but I will say the caveat with that is that if there's a serve at, or there are some higher demand sites that tend to be more popular, definitely you want to apply by one of those earlier deadlines, because as the core fills, those sites fill. So we definitely encourage our prospective applicants to apply as soon as possible. But the application should take you about an hour if you're the type of person who wants to sit down and do it all at once. For me, I revisited it a couple times, and that's what the recruiters like myself are here to help you with. We're definitely here to help you proofread it and give you any advice that you might need along the way. Here's what to expect after you hit submit. There will be a reference form so you'll fill out one professional reference, and you will be responsible for following up with them to make sure they get that completed, but that is a separate deadline after your application deadline. And then you'll just keep up with your email. You should hear about an interview as you can see in the right column here, you'll be notified by those dates. So the interview could fall anywhere between that. And finally, I'll leave this slide up for just a second. Here is my contact information, but I will also put it in the chat for you all. As I mentioned, I'm just here to be a resource to you. Anything you might need during this time, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I'm also going to take a second to read the chat and see if there are any questions I didn't answer. But Tamika, other than that, I will hand it back over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Lauren. I like how things just come together. The universe is a great place. So as promised, for my students that ended up in the random other abyss, if you guys watch Stranger Things, that was definitely a Stranger Things type of thing. You guys are in the world of 4. So now that you're back, I put the link in there for the CODC's YouTube channel. So after this event, you will give me till tomorrow, and I'll have this video uploaded so you can see what you missed. And with that, if you have any questions, feel free to come off mute. We do have Kaylin from Teach for America and Carlos from Peace Corps. So feel free to jump off mute and ask questions, or if you want to type in the chat, feel encouraged to do that. We have roughly 15 minutes, so let's fill this time. If not, then I won't treat you like your professors and make you ask a question, but I do want to make sure you use this time to get all the info you think you need. So we'll hang out and look in the chat, or feel free to come off mute. Oh, and Kaylin and Carlos, if you don't mind showing your faces, that would be amazing. We also have the Work That Matters fair that's coming up that I'm sure all three of you all will be at. Yeah, okay. So the Work That Matters fair is like our nonprofit career fair. So if you want to engage with these beautiful faces, they are registered for the Work That Matters fair. So you can look to engage with them in that virtual capacity as well. Any questions? Any takers? Oh, we got a question. Oh, that was Lauren. Sorry. Read Lauren comment, everybody. I got really excited, like, oh, a question.
Sorry, giving false hype.
Squirrel. No, just.
I'll say one thing as we are still thinking about questions, if you have any, is, these are unprecedented times. Things are crazy. And so I want to always remind students that going forward, like, don't think that this is a one or the other type of situation. AmeriCorps, City, AmeriCorps writ large and Peace Corps, but all of the sub-programs, whether it's City Year or Teach for America, it's not that you have to apply for one and not the others. You can apply for all of us and take a look at what options are going to be available to you. We all have different kind of timelines, but this is a time to apply for different opportunities to really pursue what might be out there. And we really want to help you figure that out. And we'll want to talk to you about what are your career options and what are your career goals and how we can really be a step in that path. So don't be shy to reach out to us. Again, our contact information is in there. And feel free to apply to more than one of us. Thanks.
So appreciate you sharing that, Carlos, and just want to echo that sentiment. We work as a coalition, I think, in terms of this work that matters, meaningful career paths, and also I think like just an opportunity to explore and maybe help clarify what is going to be your long-term pathway in making an impact. And that can be in lots of different ways, different avenues. And these are just 3 options of how to do that. But just wanted to say thanks, Carlos, for highlighting that and echo that same thought.
All right, perfect. Hey, all right, Carlos, we got a question for you. All right, Carlos, how did you deal with culture shock in the Peace Corps, and what resources did the Peace Corps provide to help you transition to a new country?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Peace Corps is all about that integration into your community. And so the first up to 3 months is training. And during training, you are in a homestay, but you're also doing that intense language training. So when I went to Kenya, I actually learned Kenyan Sign Language and Swahili, which is really kind of a part of that starting to feel at home, right? Not having to depend on an interpreter, right? Not having to look to somebody else or wonder what someone said. So developing that language. Cultural training, so understanding what are the norms around me, right? You're not a tourist in this situation. You belong, so you should know what is normal, what's not normal, and how to react to those things. But that cultural training is also kind of expanding on what is this community that you're in now. So in Kenya, it's 42 different ethnic groups. And so being able to understand who they are, where they are, what are their languages, how do they interact, what are their own biases towards each other, right? And what are their biases outside of that. There's job training. So again, that you understand not just what the job is that you have to do, but what are the expectations? What is likely to happen around you in those settings? So training is very much about helping you understand what's happening around you to give you agency over this situation, right? So when you understand what's happening, why it's happening, when you understand the expectations, it really helps you find yourself in those situations. And so no 2 volunteers handle their community the same way. Everyone has to really understand, this is who I am, and this is how I reflect that here, doing that respectfully, not just to the community that I'm in, but also to myself. And I'll say it was a process. I really had to figure out how much of myself I could be and how I would be that, right? And how I would express that. but that was different from other volunteers, certainly. And I think the Peace Corps does a really good job giving you those tools. It's just a question of when you're ready to use them and how effectively you can use them. It took me a little while to really understand how to use those tools. But that it's normal. It's a normal process. Thanks for your question, Katie.
Any other questions with our last couple minutes? Okay, I got one. I just thought of this. Came to me. For all three of you, what is the most memorable part of your own personal experience serving in your respective organizations?
I'll start. So just to remind you all, I served with Citier. My favorite piece was by far the relationship building aspects. And I could sit here and try to recall any one relationship with any student I had. But for me, it's the fact that even to this day, my students still reach out to me. So we weren't allowed to have them on social media while we were serving, respecting that mentor aspect. But yeah, so the second, last day of school, last day of service, they were like, Miss Lauren, what's your Snapchat? What's your Instagram? And to this day, they'll send me their flashback memories of it. And for me, my favorite piece while actively serving was the relationships I had with them. But to know that even 3 years later, that I really had that impact on them, that was the impact that I could have only hoped to have on them. And they still, remember those moments, and they take them into their current relationships that they have with their current Citier Corps members. And that just means the most to me. That's all I could have hoped for, was that some of the lessons that I taught them stuck with them. And apparently they did. So.
I can share next. Thank you, Lauren, for sharing that. And just as a quick reminder, to those of you who were not on the call earlier, my name is Kaylin Thomas, and I'm the representative here with Teach for America. And I would say, very similarly to what Lauren shared, I think the relationships that you develop with students in the classroom just transcends all. Truly, by getting to know my kids and their families, I just feel like I see the world through a completely different lens. I always knew prior to Teach for America that I wanted to do something that felt meaningful and was related to equity, but I think being in the classroom confirmed that this will be part of my life's work, is working towards equity, social equity, but specifically within our education system. The moment that I think sticks out the most as just a huge win and a culmination of lots of different emotions was the end of my first year teaching, when we took, every year we would take a set of tests to determine what grade level students were on and how much growth they had made in certain subjects. And being able to celebrate with my students and see, after a tough, long first year of teaching that was incredibly transformative, but also, not gonna lie, challenging during a lot of moments, to see the growth that my students made and to celebrate that with their parents and with their family members was just one of the best feelings. And to this day is something that I still connect with my students about, or talk to them just about how either that growth or the work that we did in middle school actually transcended to high school, and now currently for some of them in college. So some of them aren't quite there yet, and some of them are right in their first years. But that's definitely a moment that, or those moments, I think, are the biggest moments that stay with me. And I'll pass it to Carlos.
Just like Lauren and Kaylin, I'm going to tell you, it's the relationships that you build through Peace Corps, through this type of experience, that are the most valuable, not just with the students, but your colleagues, your neighbors, and other volunteers that are going through this with you, who remain lifelong friends. I would say that my homestay family, one of the stories I will definitely share is that my homestay family was very, very important to me. And we developed a really close relationship. This is the family in the first 3 months of my service. They are still my mama and baba in Kenya. When I arrived, they told me that this was my birth in Kenya, and they gave me my name, which was Macau. And it really was very, very special, right? And matter of fact, I got married to another Peace Corps volunteer. We got married with our homestay families. So we did a traditional wedding, and we've been back to visit them, and we stay in touch. We talk probably every week or so. And that is the relationship, right? And that's just one of the very important relationships that I've developed throughout that time. So not just the people that I worked with as well, but even to the very nascent beginning. And that cohort of volunteers that I'm still tight with. There are so many stories that we could all share, and I would love to tell you some of the other ones, but maybe in a different setting. So reach out to me, and don't mind bugging. Not just me, but any of us about our stories, because those are the best parts of the experience.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank all three of you for participating and joining us virtually. It's always great to connect with you all. The work that you do definitely aligns with my position and just trying to make the world a place. And I just want students to know that the work is being done, and there are companies out there that are knowledgeable about the disparities that exist within, Lord Jesus, our world, but then also within the United States, and that there is a way to make a difference, even if you don't turn it into a lifelong career, just to engage, to learn, and to be changed for the better. Because regardless, if we realize that we're interacting with youth, that will impact the future. So if we can change the way we think, to be more positive, more equitable, more caring, more inclusive, the kids that we interact with will take on those same attributes, and hopefully we can right the wrongs of society, of other countries, and of the United States. So I thank you all for joining me. I thank you for the work that you do and for giving our students a chance to make an impact, whether it's big or small, whether it's in the States or internationally. So I hope this was informative for all that views it or that is present with me tonight. I thank you all for your adaptability and flexibility and jumping from call to call, but we got it. We got it all in one take. So I appreciate you all. Look for these companies at our continued career fairs. The healthcare fair is tomorrow. And then we have grad school fair coming up, and then we have work that matters. So basically stay on Handshake, because we're hitting you every week with a new event and a new opportunity to either land an internship or a career. So thank you all. This was C10. Catch us in November for our next one. And once again, thank you, Kaylin, Carlos, and Lauren, for representing your companies and sharing your stories with us. Good night.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, Tamika. Thank you, Lauren, Carlos.
You're very welcome. Thanks, y'all.
Bye, guys.